My parents chose my cheating ex over me at every family gathering after our divorce. They said she was like a daughter to them, and I needed to get over it. So I stopped coming to anything. Now they're begging to meet their 3 grandchildren, and I keep forgetting to call back. Hey, Reddit. So my parents picked my cheating ex-wife over me after our divorce, kept inviting her to every single family event while telling me to get over it, and now they're shocked that I won't let them meet their grandkids. Buckle up because this is one hell of a ride that involves betrayal, terrible parenting, and the most satisfying petty revenge you'll read all week. I'm 32 now, but this story starts about 7 years ago when I was 25 and getting married to who I thought was the love of my life. Let me paint you a picture of my family dynamics first, because context matters here. Without understanding where I came from, you won't fully appreciate just how nuclear I went when they pushed me too far. I'm an only child. That sounds like it should mean I got all the attention and love, right? Wrong. See, my parents always wanted a daughter. They made that abundantly clear my entire childhood. Mom would make these comments about how she wished she had someone to go shopping with or plan weddings with. Dad would joke about how sons are fine, but daughters take care of you when you're old. Real subtle stuff that definitely didn't mess with my head at all growing up. Growing up, I got used to hearing about all the things they couldn't do with me because I was a boy. No tea parties, no dress shopping, no mother-daughter spa days or daddy-daughter dances. I know this sounds like I'm being sensitive, but when you hear this stuff your whole childhood, it gets under your skin. Every birthday, every Christmas, there was this undercurrent of disappointment that I wasn't what they really wanted. They tried to compensate by being good parents in the practical ways. I was fed, clothed, had a roof over my head, went to decent schools. But there was always this emotional distance, this sense that I was adequate, but not ideal. Other kids had parents who came to every game, every recital, every school event. Mine came to the important ones and spent the rest of the time talking about their friends' daughters and how sweet they were. I played baseball through high school, was pretty good at it too, made varsity sophomore year. My dad came to maybe a third of my games, and when he did, he'd spend half the time on his phone. Meanwhile, my buddies' parents were there every single game with signs and cowbells and the whole 9 yards. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need that kind of attention, but it did matter. It always mattered. When I met Jessica at 22, my parents lost their minds with excitement. Not because I was happy or because she was a good person for me. No, they were thrilled because they finally got their daughter. From day one, they treated Jessica like she was their kid, and I was just the guy who happened to bring her into their lives. I met Jessica at a mutual friend's house party. She was gorgeous, confident, funny, and way out of my league, or so I thought. We hit it off immediately, talked for hours about everything and nothing. She laughed at my jokes, seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say, made me feel like I was the most interesting person in the room. Looking back, I realized she was just really good at making people feel that way. It's what made her so successful in sales later on. We started dating, and within a month I introduced her to my parents. That was my first mistake. The moment she walked into their house, it was like watching a masterclass in charm. She complimented my mom's decorating. She asked my dad about his work and actually seemed fascinated by his boring stories about municipal accounting. She brought homemade cookies she'd baked that morning just for them. My mom pulled me aside in the kitchen and literally had tears in her eyes. "She's perfect," she whispered. "Don't mess this up." No pressure or anything. From that point on, Jessica became the center of my parents' universe. My mom called her more than she called me. They'd make plans without even including me. I'd come home from work and Jessica would already be at my parents' house having dinner with them. When I'd ask why I wasn't invited, my mom would say, "Oh, I thought you were working late," even though I'd told her multiple times what my schedule was. Jessica ate it up too. She was one of those people who could charm anyone within 5 minutes of meeting them. My mom and her would spend hours on the phone talking about recipes and home decor. My dad taught her how to play golf, and they'd go out on weekends together, just the two of them. I didn't even golf. Family dinners became all about Jessica's job as a pharmaceutical sales rep, Jessica's opinions on everything, Jessica's stories about her clients and her travel. I'd sit there like a prop in my own life, occasionally getting asked to pass the salt. Jessica's own family was kind of distant. Her parents had divorced when she was young, and both remarried quickly. She had step-siblings she didn't really know, and parents who were more focused on their new families. I think that's why she latched onto my parents so hard. They gave her the family she'd always wanted, and they finally got the daughter they'd always wanted. I was just the middleman who made it possible. Don't get me wrong, at first I thought it was great that my girlfriend and parents got along so well. Beats the alternative of having in-law drama, right? My buddy from college was dealing with a girlfriend whose mom hated him, and that sounded like a nightmare. I figured this was what a healthy family looked like. I was young and dumb, and didn't see the red flags that were practically slapping me in the face. The warning signs were there, though. Jessica would make decisions about our relationship and then tell my parents before telling me. She'd plan our weekends around my parents' schedule without checking if I had other plans. When we had disagreements, she'd call my mom and they'd tag team me until I gave in. It was subtle at first, but it built up over time. One time we were looking at apartments to move in together. I found this great place near my work with a good price. Jessica found one that was 20 minutes further from my job but 15 minutes closer to my parents' house. Guess which one we ended up getting? My mom even helped convince me by saying things like, "You can visit us more often," and "Jessica's commute is longer than yours, so it's only fair." We got married after dating for 3 years. Big wedding, over 200 people, the whole thing. My parents paid for most of it, but made sure everyone knew Jessica planned every single detail, which was true. I wanted a small beach ceremony with close friends, and maybe a casual reception at a restaurant. Simple, meaningful, affordable. Jessica wanted the fairy tale wedding, and I mean the full fairy tale. She had Pinterest boards with thousands of pins. She subscribed to 4 different bridal magazines. She dragged me to 17 different venues before picking the one she'd liked first anyway. The whole engagement turned into this production that was more about the event than the actual marriage. Every weekend was consumed with wedding planning, cake tastings, flower selections, band auditions, meeting with photographers. I tried to be involved, but honestly, most of the time Jessica and my mom had already narrowed down the choices to 2 options that were basically identical, and my job was just to nod and agree. If I suggested something different, they'd share this look like I was being difficult. The actual wedding planning revealed so much about the dynamic I'd been ignoring. I wanted a friend of mine who was an amateur DJ to handle the music. Jessica and my mom insisted on hiring a professional band that cost $8,000. When I protested about the price, my dad pulled me aside and said, "Son, this is her day. Just let her have what she wants. Her day. Not our day. Hers." I suggested we do a casual buffet-style dinner to save money and make it more relaxed. Jessica wanted a formal sit-down dinner with multiple courses. My mom backed her up, saying, "We're only doing this once, we should do it right." The implication being that my vision wasn't right. The guest list was another battle I lost. I wanted to keep it under 100 people. Jessica's list alone was 150 people. She invited co-workers she barely knew, distant relatives who'd she'd met once, friends from high school she hadn't spoken to in years. When I questioned why we were inviting people who weren't actually close to us, my mom said, "Weddings are about bringing people together," and that I was being antisocial. My parents paid for about 60% of the wedding, which was generous, but they held it over me constantly during the planning. Anytime I pushed back on something, my dad would remind me they were footing most of the bill, like I'd asked them to do that. They offered because they wanted the big wedding. I would have been happy with the courthouse and a nice dinner. Guess which wedding we had? My contribution to the planning was showing up and saying yes to whatever they decided. I picked my groomsman and the officiant, a family friend who'd known me since I was a kid. Jessica and my mom handled literally everything else. The colors, the flowers, the menu, the seating chart, the timeline, the decorations, the favors, the programs, everything. The night before the wedding, we had a rehearsal dinner at this fancy restaurant Jessica's aunt recommended. My parents gave a toast that was 90% about how wonderful Jessica was and 10% about how lucky I was to have found her. My dad literally said, "We always wanted a daughter, and now we finally have one." Everyone laughed and clinked glasses. I smiled and nodded like it was a sweet sentiment instead of a gut punch that reminded me I'd never been quite enough for them. The wedding day itself was beautiful, objectively speaking. Perfect weather, elegant venue, everything went smoothly. Over 200 people showed up. The ceremony was nice. The reception was fun. Jessica looked stunning and seemed genuinely happy. I was happy too, in the moment. Looking back at the photos now, though, I can see it in my face. This underlying uncertainty, this sense that I was a supporting character at my own wedding. My mom cried during the ceremony. She told everyone later it was because she was so happy. I think part of it was that she'd finally gotten the daughter she'd always wanted. She'd planned this kind of wedding in her head for years, probably imagining a daughter she never had. Now she got to live it through Jessica. The whole day felt less like a celebration of me and Jessica as a couple, and more like a celebration of Jessica joining my family. Speech after speech mentioned how lucky my family was to have her, how she'd fit in so perfectly, how she was already like a daughter to my parents. Nobody really talked about us as a team or partnership. It was all about her being welcomed into the fold. I brushed it off at the time, told myself I was being oversensitive, that it was sweet how much my family loved my new wife, that I should be grateful instead of weird about it. That's what you do when you've spent your whole life getting subtle messages that you're not quite what was wanted. You learn to ignore your gut and rationalize away the red flags. The first couple years of marriage were fine on the surface. We had our issues like any couple, but nothing that seemed catastrophic at the time. The usual stuff, disagreements about money, whose turn it was to do dishes, how to spend holidays, normal couple friction. But looking back, the foundation was shaky from the start. Jessica's job had her traveling constantly for pharmaceutical conferences and client meetings, sometimes gone for a week at a time. She was great at her job, genuinely talented at sales and building client relationships. The money was good too, better than what I was making. She'd come back from trips with stories about fancy dinners and hotel suites, trade shows and networking events. I worked as an insurance adjuster for a regional company. Steady hours, decent pay, home every night. I'd investigate claims, assess damages, interview claimants, write reports. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills, and I actually enjoyed the investigative side of the work. There was something satisfying about piecing together what really happened in an accident or incident, separating facts from fiction. The work-life balance was good too. I was home by 6 most nights, had weekends free unless there was a major claim that needed immediate attention. I thought it was a good setup. Stable income, time to enjoy life, no unnecessary stress. Apparently, I was wrong about it being impressive enough. My parents loved telling people about Jessica's career. At family gatherings, it was always, Jessica just got back from a conference in Denver, or Jessica's company is sending her to train the new regional team, or Jessica's the top sales rep in her district. They'd go on and on about her accomplishments, her travel, her salary increases. When people asked what I did, my dad would usually say something like, insurance stuff, in this dismissive tone, then immediately pivot back to Jessica. Sometimes he wouldn't even finish the sentence before changing the subject. He's in insurance, but anyway, Jessica was just telling us about her trip to Seattle. My mom would actually apologize for my job sometimes. Someone would ask what I did and she'd say, "Oh, he's an insurance adjuster," with this apologetic little laugh like she was embarrassed. Then she'd quickly add, "But Jessica has a really exciting career in pharmaceutical sales," like she needed to compensate for my boring job with Jessica's impressive one. I started noticing the difference in how they talked about us at family dinners. When Jessica told a story about work, closing a big deal, handling a difficult client, traveling to a new city, my parents would hang on every word, ask follow-up questions, express amazement and pride. When I'd talk about work, solving a complicated case, catching someone trying to commit fraud, getting recognition from my boss, they'd give distracted nods and change the subject within minutes. It got to the point where I stopped sharing work stories unless specifically asked, and I was rarely specifically asked. Why bother talking about your accomplishments when nobody's really listening? The cracks in our marriage started showing around year 3. Jessica became distant in a way that went beyond just being busy. She was always on her phone, texting during dinner, stepping outside to take calls that she said were work-related. She was tired all the time, irritable, snapping at me over little things that never bothered her before. When she was home, which was increasingly rare, she was physically there but mentally checked out. I'd try to tell her about my day, and she'd be scrolling Instagram. I'd suggest we watch a movie together, and she'd say she had emails to catch up on. I'd try to initiate intimacy, and she'd claim she was exhausted from travel. Our conversations became purely logistical. Did you pay the electric bill? What do you want for dinner? Can you pick up the dry cleaning? We stopped talking about anything meaningful, stopped sharing our days, stopped being partners, and became more like roommates with joint financial obligations. I tried talking to her about it multiple times, asked if something was wrong, if there was anything I could do, if she was unhappy with me or the marriage. She'd always say she was just stressed with work, and I was being too needy, that I didn't understand the pressure she was under to perform, that I should be more supportive instead of complaining that she was working hard. The thing is, I was supportive. I handled everything at home when she was traveling, made sure bills were paid, house was clean, groceries were stocked. I never complained about her travel schedule or long hours. I encouraged her career ambitions. So being called needy for wanting my wife to occasionally act like she remembered I existed? That stung. I'm not an idiot. I knew something was off. The late-night phone calls, The secretive texting, the increasing travel, the emotional distance, the lack of physical intimacy. But I trusted her. More fool me. I thought maybe it really was just work stress. That we were going through a rough patch and would come out stronger. All that optimistic nonsense people tell themselves when they don't want to face what's right in front of them. I even tried to spice things up, thinking maybe we'd fallen into a rut. Planned a surprise weekend getaway to a bed and breakfast she'd mentioned wanting to visit. She canceled the day before because a work emergency came up. Tried cooking her favorite meals when she was home. She'd take 3 bites and say she wasn't hungry. Bought her gifts for no reason. She'd thank me absently and put them aside. My friends noticed the change in me. Asked if everything was okay at home. I'd brush it off, make excuses. Marriage is work, right? Everyone goes through difficult periods. We'd figure it out. Looking back, I was lying to myself as much as to them. Then came the night that changed everything. Jessica was supposed to be at a 3-day pharmaceutical conference in Chicago. She'd left on Wednesday morning, kissed me goodbye at the door, said she'd call me when she got to the hotel. She'd been looking forward to this conference for weeks, said it was important for networking, and there were several seminars she wanted to attend. She called Wednesday night and sounded fine. Told me about the hotel, the other reps she'd run into, the dinner reception. Thursday we texted a few times. Brief messages about her day. Nothing seemed unusual. I had no reason to suspect anything. Then came the night that changed everything. Jessica was supposed to be at a 3-day conference in Chicago. She'd left on Wednesday, supposed to be back Saturday morning. Friday night around 11 p.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It was a woman named Linda. She introduced herself as the wife of Jessica's coworker, Brian. She was calling because she'd found some text messages on Brian's phone that I needed to see. She was crying, apologizing for being the one to tell me, but said she'd want to know if she were in my position. My stomach dropped. Linda sent me screenshots. Messages between Brian and Jessica going back almost 8 months. And I'm not talking about friendly coworker banter. These were explicit, detailed messages about their affair. Plans to meet up at conferences. Complaints about their boring spouses who didn't understand them. Discussions about what they'd do if they could be together full-time. It was brutal to read. I sat on our couch until 4 a.m. just staring at those messages. Part of me wanted to believe it was fake somehow, that there was an explanation. But deep down, I knew it was real. The late nights. The distance. The irritability. It all made sense now. Jessica came home Saturday morning around 10 a.m., all smiles and asking how my week went. I just showed her my phone with the messages pulled up. Watched the color drain from her face. She tried to deny it at first, then said it wasn't what it looked like, then finally admitted it, but swore it was over and begged me to forgive her. I told her to pack a bag and get out. She started crying, saying she made a mistake, that she loved me, that we could work through this. I just kept repeating for her to leave. She finally did, going to stay with her parents. I called a lawyer that Monday. Now, here's where it gets really fun. I didn't tell my parents the details at first. I just said Jessica and I were getting divorced, and I'd rather not discuss it. My mom immediately called Jessica to check on her and get her side. Jessica apparently told them some story about us growing apart and me being unwilling to work on the marriage. Painted herself as the victim who tried everything to save us. My parents bought it completely. They started calling me, telling me I was making a huge mistake, that every marriage has rough patches, that I needed to be more mature and work on things. My dad actually said, "You're throwing away the best thing that ever happened to you over pride." I told them she cheated on me, showed them the messages. You know what my mother said? "Well, you must have done something to push her to that. People don't just cheat for no reason." My dad said I was probably not paying enough attention to her with her demanding career, that I needed to examine my role in the breakdown of the marriage. I'm not even kidding. My own parents blamed me for my wife having an 8-month affair. They made excuses for her, said everyone makes mistakes, that I was being too harsh and unforgiving. My mom actually said, "Jessica is like a daughter to me, and I know her heart is good." The divorce took about 4 months to finalize. Jessica fought me on every little thing through her lawyer, trying to get more money, claiming she deserved half of everything, even though we'd only been married 3 years and she made more than me. My lawyer was great though, and we ended up with a pretty clean split. No kids, no house together, just dividing up some savings and possessions. During those 4 months, my parents kept in regular contact with Jessica. They'd have her over for dinner. My mom would take her shopping. My dad would invite her to his golf club, and they'd tell me about it. We had Jessica over Sunday, and she's doing so well. Jessica joined us at the club, and everyone asked about her, like they were rubbing it in my face. I told them it was inappropriate and hurtful that they were maintaining a relationship with someone who cheated on me and destroyed our marriage. My mom said, just because you two couldn't make it work doesn't mean we have to lose our relationship with her. She's been part of our family for 6 years. 6 years. I'd been their son for 25 years at that point, and they were choosing my cheating ex-wife over me because they'd known her for 6 years. The final divorce papers were signed on a Tuesday in March. I remember the date because it was my dad's birthday. I texted my parents that the divorce was finalized. My mom's response was, "That's too bad. We were hoping you'd reconsider." That year was rough. I threw myself into work, hung out with friends, started going to the gym regularly, tried to rebuild my life as a single guy. My parents would call occasionally, always bringing up Jessica somehow. How she got a promotion, how she was doing great, how she asked about me. It was like they were trying to make me jealous or regretful. I started declining family invitations. Thanksgiving that year, I said I had to work. Christmas, I told them I wasn't feeling well. Easter, I made up some excuse I don't even remember. Every time I skipped an event, I'd hear later through extended family that Jessica had been there. My aunt let it slip that Jessica came to Thanksgiving dinner. My cousin mentioned seeing Jessica at the Christmas gathering. My parents were literally replacing me with my ex-wife at family functions. I confronted them about it after Easter, asked them point blank why they kept inviting her. My dad said, "She doesn't have much family of her own, and we're not going to abandon her just because you can't handle being around her." My mom added, "We think if you two spent time together, you might realize you still have feelings for each other." They were trying to get us back together. Over a year after she cheated on me. They genuinely thought if they just kept us in proximity, I'd forgive her, and we'd reconcile. Like I was the unreasonable one for not wanting to be married to someone who had an 8-month affair. I told them I was done. That I wasn't coming to any more family events as long as Jessica was invited. That they needed to choose. My mother actually laughed and said, "You're being ridiculous and controlling. We can have relationships with whoever we want." So I chose for them. I stopped answering their calls. Stopped responding to texts, except for one-word answers. Stopped visiting. Stopped engaging at all. If they wanted Jessica as their daughter so badly, they could have her. I was out. For about 2 years, we were basically estranged. They'd reach out on my birthday and holidays. I'd send a brief thanks, and that was it. They never apologized. Never acknowledged that what they were doing was messed up. Just kept acting like I was being petty and holding a grudge. During this time, I met Rachel. She was a nurse at a hospital I was doing some insurance work at, evaluating a claim. We got to talking in the cafeteria, and she was just different from anyone I'd dated before. Genuine, funny, didn't play games. We took things slow, both of us having been burned before. After about 6 months of dating, I knew she was the one. I didn't tell my parents about Rachel for the first year we were together. Didn't see the point. They'd made their priorities clear, and I wasn't interested in bringing someone I cared about into that mess. Rachel knew about my family situation and was supportive, said she understood and wouldn't push me to reconcile if I wasn't ready. Rachel and I got married at a courthouse, with just our close friends present. No big wedding, no drama, no parents. It was perfect. Simple. Just about us making a commitment to each other. We had a small dinner afterward with about 20 people at a nice restaurant. Everything I'd wanted the first time around but didn't get. My parents found out I'd gotten married through Facebook when one of my friends posted photos and tagged me. My mom called crying, saying how could I get married without telling them? How hurt she was that they weren't included. I told her she'd made her choice when she chose Jessica over me, and I'd made mine. She tried to guilt trip me about missing my wedding, said I'd regret excluding them from such an important day. I asked if Jessica had been at their last family gathering. She got quiet, then admitted yes, Jessica had been at their July 4th barbecue. I hung up. Rachel got pregnant about 8 months after we got married. We were thrilled. She had an easy pregnancy and gave birth to our daughter Sophie. Beautiful, healthy baby girl. The hospital staff asked about grandparents visiting, and I just said both sets lived far away. Easier than explaining the truth. When Sophie was about 3 months old, I posted a single photo on Facebook of me holding her. Just wanted to share this perfect moment with friends who'd been supportive through everything. Within an hour, my mom was calling. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail crying about having a granddaughter she'd never met, and how unfair I was being. My dad sent a long text about how they'd made mistakes, but family was family, and their granddaughter deserved to know them. I didn't respond. They sent cards with money for Sophie. I donated the money to charity and threw away the cards. Here's the thing, and I want to be really clear about this. I wasn't keeping Sophie from them out of spite. I was protecting my daughter from people who'd shown me exactly who they were when it mattered. These were people who blamed me for being cheated on, who maintained a relationship with someone who betrayed me, who chose a woman they'd known for 6 years over their own son. Why would I want those people influencing my child? Rachel and I had twin boys 2 years after Sophie, Jack and Noah. My parents found out through the same Facebook grapevine. More crying voicemails, more guilt trips. My mom sent an email saying she was heartbroken that she had 3 grandchildren she'd never met and that I was being cruel. I finally responded to that email, wrote out everything, how they blamed me for Jessica's affair, how they maintained a relationship with her for years after we divorced, how they kept inviting her to family events and telling me to get over it, how they never once apologized or acknowledged the pain they caused, how they chose her over me repeatedly, and how I wasn't exposing my children to people who'd treated their father that way. My dad responded saying it was in the past and I needed to move on, that they'd stopped seeing Jessica over a year ago, so everything was fine now. Like the issue was just that they were still in contact with her, and not the fundamental betrayal of how they'd treated me. I didn't respond to that. What was the point? They didn't get it, and they never would. Fast forward to now. Sophie is 5, the twins are 3. We live about 2 hours from my parents. Close enough that they could visit if we had a relationship. Far enough that we don't accidentally run into them. Rachel's parents are amazing grandparents and fill that role beautifully. The kids don't know my parents exist, and they're not missing anything. My parents have ramped up their attempts to contact me over the past 6 months. Calls, texts, emails, letters. They want to meet their grandchildren. They say they're getting older and running out of time. My mom sent a letter saying she's had health scares and wants to make amends before it's too late. My dad sent money for the kids' college funds with a note about wanting to be involved in their lives. I keep saying I'll call them back. I tell Rachel I need to think about it. I save their voicemails saying I'll listen later. I put their letters in a drawer, meaning to read them eventually. But somehow I keep forgetting. Must be getting forgetful in my old age. The guilt trips have evolved. They've started reaching out to my friends on Facebook, asking them to tell me how important family is. My aunt calls me every few weeks saying my parents are heartbroken and I'm being too harsh. My cousin sent me a long message about forgiveness and how everyone makes mistakes. What these people don't understand is that I did forgive my parents. I forgave them for myself, so I could move on and build a happy life. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean giving them access to my family. It doesn't mean pretending their choices didn't reveal their character. My mom's latest voicemail said she ran into Jessica at the grocery store, and Jessica asked about me. Said she hoped I was doing well and seemed genuinely happy for me. My mom told me this like it was supposed to make me want to reach out. Like learning my ex-wife who destroyed my first marriage is doing fine was the push I needed to reconnect with my parents. I saved that voicemail but haven't listened to it again. Put it in the folder with all the others I keep meaning to get back to. Rachel asks me sometimes if I'll regret not letting the kids know my parents. I tell her the truth. Maybe, but I know for certain I'd regret exposing my children to people who would blame them if someone hurt them. Who would side with the person who hurt them because they had a better relationship with that person? Who would choose appearances and their own comfort over their own child's well-being? My parents taught me an important lesson. People will show you who they are if you pay attention. They showed me I was disposable to them, that their idea of a daughter was more important than their actual son, that maintaining a comfortable social dynamic was more valuable than loyalty to family. So yeah, they want to meet their grandchildren. They want to be part of our lives. They send gifts and cards and money. They leave tearful voicemails about running out of time. They tell relatives to pressure me into forgiveness, and I keep forgetting to call them back. Sophie asked me recently if she has grandparents on my side. I told her the truth in a way a 5-year-old can understand. I have parents, but we don't talk to them because they weren't very kind to Daddy when he needed them. She accepted this with the easy logic of childhood and asked if we could have ice cream instead. We did. My parents don't know about Sophie's love of drawing. They don't know the twins are obsessed with dinosaurs. They don't know Rachel and I are thinking about having one more kid. They don't know we bought a bigger house last year. They don't know Jack needs glasses or that Noah is already reading at a first-grade level. They don't know Sophie wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. They know none of these things because they made their choice 7 years ago, and I made mine in response. The difference is I can sleep fine with my decision. Last week, my dad sent an email with photos of him and my mom. They've aged noticeably. My mom's hair is completely gray now, and my dad has lost weight. The email said, "We're not getting any younger and life is short," with a request to at least talk on the phone. I read the email, looked at the photos, and saved it to the folder with all their other messages. I'll probably respond eventually. Maybe, when I get around to it, if I remember. The thing is, I think about what I'd tell my kids if they were in my situation. If someone they loved betrayed them, and then other people they loved took the betrayer's side, blamed them for the betrayal, maintained relationships with the person who hurt them, told them to get over it and stop being difficult, I'd tell them they don't owe those people anything. That blood doesn't entitle anyone to your life or your children. That forgiveness doesn't require relationship restoration. That sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from toxic people, even if they're family. I'd tell them exactly what I tell myself. You protected yourself, and you built a beautiful life without them. You don't owe them access to that life just because they've decided they want it now. My parents had every opportunity to be part of my life. They chose Jessica instead. Multiple times. For years. They didn't choose me when it mattered. They don't get to demand I choose them now that it's convenient for them. Rachel and I were talking about it last night after the kids went to bed. She asked if I thought my parents understood why I cut contact. I told her honestly, I don't think they don't. They probably see themselves as victims of my stubbornness. They probably tell people their son won't let them meet their grandchildren over some old disagreement. They probably paint me as the unreasonable one holding a grudge. And you know what? I'm fine with that. Let them think I'm holding a grudge. Let them be the victims in their story. I know the truth, and so do the people who actually matter in my life. My kids are happy. Rachel and I have a strong marriage built on mutual respect and loyalty. We have good friends and a nice life. We don't have drama or people who make us feel small or unsupported. We have peace. That's worth more than playing happy families with people who showed me I couldn't count on them when everything fell apart. So my parents keep calling. They keep emailing. They keep sending letters and gifts and money. They keep having relatives reach out on their behalf. They keep leaving voicemails about how much time they're wasting and how they just want a chance. And I keep meaning to call them back. I really do. It's on my to-do list. Right under reorganizing the garage and learning to play guitar. Important stuff that I'll definitely get to eventually. Any day now. I'm sure I'll remember soon. The irony isn't lost on me that they spent years telling me to get over what Jessica did, to forgive and move on, to not hold grudges. And now they can't understand why I can't just get over what they did. Why I can't forgive and move on from them choosing her over me repeatedly. I followed their advice, though. I did get over it. I did move on. I built a whole new life without any of them in it. I'm just not sure that's the outcome they were hoping for when they gave me that advice. My mom sent a text yesterday asking if we could at least video chat so she could see the kids. I read it while Sophie was showing me her latest drawing of our family. Me, Rachel, her, and her brothers, all holding hands under a rainbow. It was beautiful, simple, complete. I showed Rachel the text. She squeezed my hand and said whatever I decided, she supported me. I looked at that drawing again, looked at my daughter's proud smile, thought about my boys in the next room building a block tower together. This is my family. The one I built. The one I protected by making hard choices. The one that exists because I decided my kids deserved better than what I had growing up. I put my phone down without responding. I'll get back to her. Eventually. When I have time. When the kids are older, maybe. When I'm ready. Or maybe I won't. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.